Hi, welcome to the Cuesta Pride podcast. My name's Hadley.
And I'm Amelia.
And today we're going to be talking about Harvey Milk. So if you don't know who Harvey Milk is, Harvey Bernard Milk was born on May 22nd in 1930. He was born in Woodmere, New York. He was the second son of William and Minerva Milk. He came from a family with prominent ties to the community. His Lithuanian-born grandfather, Morris, owned Milk's Dry Goods, which became the largest department store in Long Island. He had also helped organize the first area synagogue.
I like that he didn't sell milk. It's only dry goods.
It's dry goods. Like, with a name like Milk, you think he would sell milk.
Does he have, like, the powdered milk?
Maybe.
Canned milk?
Maybe.
Canned milk? Milk in a bag?
Oh, that good old Canadian stuff.
Good old milk in a bag.
Yeah. Milk realized he was gay at an early age. He reportedly was indulging his desires with illicit tryst by his early teens. However, he also knew full well that he needed to conceal any signs that would raise suspicion, such as his love for opera. Milk's cover was helped by his athleticism. He played football and basketball at Bayshore High School and had a quick comment wit that made him popular among his classmates. So he's a funny dude. Milk enrolled in New York State College for Teachers at Albany. There, he joined the Jewish fraternity Kappa Beta and became a sports editor for the school paper. After graduating with a mathematics degree in 1951, he followed his parents' footsteps and enlisted in the Navy.
The only proper military branch.
Yes. As the village people say, they want you in the Navy.
They want you in the Navy.
Milk went to attend Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island, and served as a diving instructor and chief petty officer aboard the USS Kittiwake during the Korean War until his honorable discharge in 1955. He was well compensated and politically conservative. Milk campaigned for the Republican presidential hopeful Barry Goldwater in 1964. The straight-laced Milk was content to live in a closeted life in those days. However, after he befriended experimental theater director Tom O'Horgan, Milk eventually became involved with the more progressive avant-garde crowd. After his lover joined an O'Horgan directed production of Hair in San Francisco, and if you don't know what Hair is, I think it probably resonated with Milk a lot. It's Hair, the American tribal love rock musical, and it follows a young group of hippies fighting the establishment, dodging the draft, getting high, and living and loving in New York City. The story is, with the Vietnam War raging and the age of Aquarius is dawning, Claude and his best friend Berger and their roommate Sheila and their tribe of friends struggled to balance the harsh demands of the violent world with their dream of a more beautiful and peaceful world. When Claude receives his first draft notice, he must decide whether to join his friends in resisting the draft or bow to the pressures of society and his conservative parents, thereby sacrificing his ideals and possibly his life. So you can see how Harvey Milk, growing up in that very conservative thing, but going into this more progressive, gay sort of thing, how he would kind of maybe resonate with that. And Milk moved to the Bay Area in 1969, a financial analyst by day. He joined his friends to march in protest of the Vietnam War while enjoying the city's thriving gay social scene after hours. He was fired from his financial analysis job for partaking in an anti-war rally in the spring of 1970. Milk returned to New York, where he served as assistant for O'Horgan on his productions of Jesus Christ Superstar, which Jesus Christ Superstar is set during the last week of Jesus' life as he deals with betrayal, love, and jealousy told from the perspective of Judas, and Lenny, which is a biographical play about the life of controversial comedian Lenny Bruce.
You know, like most comedians, most politicians don't have a comedic or like theatrical side, and it's very fun to see that in this instance.
He loved the theater. It's where all the gay men during that time went.
We only have one place to go, boys.
That or opera. Milk moved back to San Francisco for good in late 1972, and within a few months he opened a camera shop on Castro Street, the heart of the gay community. Partially inspired by what he viewed as an unfair tax on small businesses, he decided to run for a seat in the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in 1973. Milk was spurned much by the city's more influential gay electorate. He felt the outspoken New Yorker should tone down his act and wait his turn. Still, he garnered 17,000 votes to finish a respectable 10th out of 32 candidates, providing a reason to continue his political efforts. Milk co-founded the Castro Village Association to unite gay business owners and launched the inaugural Castro Street Fair in 1974. And Castro Street is really heavily tied to Milk. That's kind of like his place, is where he's heavily celebrated. Additionally, Milk forged an alliance with the Teamsters Union by supporting a boycott of Coors beer, and the union returned the favor by promising to hire more gay drivers. With his charisma, energy, and natural political skills, Milk soon became known as the mayor of Castro Street.
Good for him.
Yeah.
A lot of people have like a designated following in a certain area. It's like, hello, you've moved here. Here's your pamphlet on our God and Savior. You know,
Basically. And during this time, if you were gay in San Francisco, probably Milk was one of those dudes.
Yeah.
After coming up short in another bid for the Board of Supervisors in 1975, Milk landed a post in new Mayor George Moscone's administration on the Board of Permit Appeals. Very exciting. However, he was forced out of announcing his candidacy for the California State Assembly, which led to another campaign defeat. Undaunted by his election losses, Milk founded the San Francisco Gay Democratic Club to garner more political support and successfully pushed reorganization of the Board of Supervisors, electing from a citywide at-large format to a geographical district format. Lot of workroom talk here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that sounds important. Good job. It sounds important. I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds very important.
It was. It made the elections more fair.
Yeah.
Returning to the campaign trail in 1977, he sought to broaden his appeal beyond the gay community through promises to reform tax code, to boost industry, create low-income housing, and establish daycare centers for working mothers. That November, in his historic election, that also saw the first Chinese American and the first African American woman elected to the city's Board of Supervisors, Milk became one of the country's first openly gay elected officials. Demonstrating his penchant for courting publicly, Milk co-sponsored a pooper scooper ordinance that required dog owners to clean up after their pets. It's one of his big things. As supervisor, he also dove into more personal matters by spearheading a bill to ban discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations based on sexual orientation. One of the nation's strongest gay right measures to date.
Good job.
The ordinance passed with only one dissenting vote. That is Supervisor Dan White. Remember this dude. He will come back later in the story.
Oh, wonderful.
And Mayor Moscone signed the measure into law on March 21st, 1978. So he's doing a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, he's doing good for himself, and he's like making changes that he wants to see.
Yeah.
Which always bodes well.
Yeah. Following California State Senator John Briggs' introduction of the Proposition 6 ballot initiative, which sought to ban gay teachers and anyone supporting gay rights from working in California schools, Milk spent much of his summer and fall of 1978 campaigning against the initiative. He drew support from several political luminaries, including President Jimmy Carter and former California Governor Ronald Reagan. And Prop 6 was soundly defeated by more than 1 million votes in November. So he's doing more good stuff.
Yeah, he's gaining a following.
Also, in 1978, Milk urged artist Gilbert Baker to design the first rainbow flag. He urged him to, quote, create a symbol of pride for the gay community. The symbol became one of the most widely used symbols in the LGBTQIA+ community, and is still one of the most widely used symbols to this day.
Yeah, I feel like that's something a lot of people in the LGBTQIA community wouldn't know about the flag, but also it's like, what? Yeah, this man.
He was like, hey, why don't you create a symbol for us? And by creating this flag, one of the other reasons that he wanted to do it is to replace the pink triangle as a symbol for the community, which has direct ties to World War II Nazi concentration camps as a symbol used to mark gay men in the camps. So that's the other reason why he wanted to sort of help create this new symbol, because the pink triangle was the most widely used symbol before that, and it has some very dark connotations.
It's time to change.
It's still used heavily in Germany, though, which makes sense.
I mean, if they're okay with it, question mark?
It's kind of more like reclamation.
I guess. On some level, I just want to take like a German LGBT, and I just want to sit them down here. And I want to be like, how okay are you with this?
Are you all right with this?
That needs to be addressed in a podcast somewhere.
Yeah. So this is where we get to some interesting stuff. On November 27th, 1978, the former supervisor Dan White crept into City Hall through a basement window, armed with a .38 revolver. White had resigned to his post just months earlier and had unsuccessfully asked to be reinstated. Angered that his hope of returning to the board was denied, he confronted and killed Mayor Moscone and strode across the building to Milk's office, where he murdered his former colleague with 5 shots. So, I did some research that I think put me on an FBI watch list. But anyway, so this is my research that I found. So I'm really into true crime, and I know Mealy is a little bit too. Mm-hmm. But basically, I love looking into the criminal psychology of it. Why did they do this? What were they thinking? And something that I found out was the revolver that he used only has usually about 5 to 6 shots, rounds in it. And basically, so that basically means he shot Mary Moscone once, which is usually, the normal time he would, but he shot Harvey Milk 5 times. And in most areas, anything over 2 shots is considered overkill and is usually declared a murdering with passion sort of thing, passion killing kind of thing.
Yeah. This guy just emptied the road.
Yeah, he basically went and shot Mary Moscone once, which was, normal, and then he just emptied the gun into Harvey.
Which is, ugh. See, this is the same reaction I get when I watch true crime, because I hate myself. Because I sit there, and instead of being like, oh, the criminal psychology is really interesting, it's like, time not to sleep.
White was quickly apprehended that night, and that night, tens of thousands of Milk supporters marched to City Hall for a peaceful candlelight vigil. At the subsequent trial, the defense urged that White was operating under severe mental duress due to loss of his job, citing his junk food diet as evidence of diminished morale. This is what the strategy that they used is lovingly derided as the Twinkie Defense. And the Twinkie Defense is kind of famous, kind of like a really fraudulent claim, and it's not an actual legal term, it's just what people call it. And if you don't know what the Twinkie Defense is, it's, as I said, not an actual legal term, but it was coined by reporters that covered the infamous trial. At the trial, psychiatrist Martin Blinder testified that White had been depressed for a time at the time of the crime and pointed to several behavioral changes indicating White's depression. He had quit his job, shunned his wife, and although normally clean-cut, he had become dirty in his appearance. Furthermore, White had previously been a fitness fanatic and health food advocate, but had begun consuming junk food and sugar-laden soft drinks like Coca-Cola. As an incidental note, Blinder mentioned theories that elements of his diet could worsen his existing mood swings. Another psychiatrist, George Solomon, tested that White had, quote, exploded and was, quote, sort of on automatic pilot at the time of the killings. The fact that White had killed Moscone and Milk was not challenged, but in part because of the testimony of Blinder and other psychiatrists, the defense successfully convinced the jury that White's capacity for rational thought had been diminished, and jurors found White incapable of premeditation required for a murder conviction. American justice system at work here, people.
It's just like, okay, that one, I think we're all going to commit a murder. If those are the prerequisites to not work under rational thought anymore.
Yeah, I eat that every day, and you don't see me going out murdering people.
It reminds me, my old neighbor. He's French, so he keeps up on French politics and stuff. And there was this shooting in France, and the guy was let off the hook because he was determined insane at the time because he was so high he couldn't have possibly thought it through. And so now there's kind of like the marijuana defense. So people will commit a crime and then smoke a blunt and be like, "Not me, officer. I wasn't rational." And I'm just like, "No, sir.
That's not how that works."
Yeah, but it's happening, and it's the same shit. It's the same shit.
But yeah, that's why often people will use the term Twinkie Defense. It's so ridiculous that you can't believe anyone will believe it, sort of thing. That's what usually the Twinkie Defense, when people use it means. It's also really just a fun word. Mm-hmm. Twinkie Defense.
Twinkie Defense.
But his situation seemed to strike a chord with the jury. On May 21st, 1978, White was sentenced to less than 8 years in prison for voluntary manslaughter. He served only 5 years of his sentence before being released. He then committed suicide on October 21st, 1985, of carbon monoxide poisoning.
One of the more complicated ways to do it, but all right.
It's not super. It's, you just start your car into your garage and open the windows.
I mean, yeah.
You can't do that with electric cars anymore, that's why.
That's why it's so much harder. Plus the smoke detectors go off and you're just like, shit.
Yeah, it's difficult. It was a lot easier
Back
to do
in the
it.
day.
Back in the day. You aren't discovered for like a couple days. Anyway.
Too real.
Too real,
Back
yeah,
up.
it's getting too real. According to White, he had killed the two officials because he believed they would not let him rescind a decision to resign from the Board of Supervisors. Milk was also one of the First Nations acknowledged homosexuals elected to a major public office, and many homosexuals said that was a factor in his death. And I really do think that too, because I get like killing Mary Moscone because he's the one that didn't let you come back. He was, your boss kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But Harvey didn't really do anything specifically to like in that situation, and I think he just basically, I think there's a mixture of he thought, oh, this gay guy's taking my job.
Yeah.
Because he worked there less than a year before this assassination, so he was still the new guy kind of thing.
But he was still rising up and getting all this attention.
Yeah, and also probably he probably rightfully thought like, oh, if I kill this gay guy, the like punishment won't be as bad as if I killed someone else.
And he wasn't wrong in that regard.
He wasn't. It's still messed up.
It's still real fucked up.
Yeah. This time, the reaction was far less peaceful afterwards. Outraged protesters stormed City Hall and set police cars on fire. And the San Francisco Police Department responded by smashing up gay bars and beating patrons. All told, at least 120 people, including some 60 policemen, were injured in what was dubbed the White Night Riots.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There's not much to say about that.
It's just
that hits kind of close to home recently.
Yeah. Although he spent less than a year in office, Milk's brief time in the public eye marked an important stepping stone for the battle of gay rights. The story became known to wider audiences through Randy Schultz's 1982 biography, The Mayor of Castro Street, and Rob Epstein's 1984 Oscar-winning documentary, The Times of Harvey Milk. Additionally, more elected officials, including Massachusetts Congressman Gary Stubbs and Barney Frank, came forth to acknowledge homosexuality during this period. In subsequent years, Milk's name was attached to a series of schools, buildings, and public centers throughout California. He was the subject of another acclaimed film in 2008 with actor Sean Penn and screenwriter Dustin Lance Black earning Academy Awards for their contributions to director Gus Van Sant's biography Milk. In 2009, the activist's May 22nd birthday was formally recognized in California as Harvey Milk Day, which, when the day this is coming out, that's what today is. And he was posthumously honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Barack Obama. In the United States Navy, he, in recognition of Milk's years in the Navy and his civil rights activism, announced that a Naval Fleet oiler would be christened the USNS Harvey Milk. Other ships in that class will be named after Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren, Robert F. Kennedy, and abolitionist Sojourner Truth. So that's the story of Harvey Milk.
It's interesting.
It's interesting, and it's definitely a part, especially like California gay history.
Yeah, it's definitely something if you come from like Minnesota or something.
Yeah, you most likely don't know who he is.
Harvey who?
Yeah. But yeah, if you live in California, especially like my mom was like lived in the Bay Area during this time, and she was like she remembered like so much of it, and there was parts of this she didn't even know about. So that was really interesting. So yeah, it's a really important part of history, and it's really good to honor him because he did like put such a foot forward in terms of like,
and he made so many like a lot of the things he passed were actually very influential today.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't like it's California history, but it's also like, it kind of reaches a little farther than that. It's like a lot of the stuff like and the symbols associated with him are still big, and it's interesting. It's something that like you don't think about the people behind like those little things that we take for granted nowadays.
Those pooper scooper laws, like he was one of the first ones.
The one everyone abides by.
Yeah, true. But yeah, also the first like non-discriminatory like housing and employment law.
That one was really good.
And also the fact he did so many things when he had less than a year in office.
I know, he was a busy man.
He was just cranking it out.
Yeah. I'm impressed.
Yeah, especially with how a lot of politicians today don't do very much.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I try to remember sometimes, like it's like you're halfway through your term, how you feel on the TV, and I'm just like, what happened? Like, did anything happen?
Have you done anything?
Like, not so much recently, but like I can remember this thinking that like it's been 2 years and you haven't done anything.
So yeah, it's really an amazing story. It had also a very sad ending.
Yeah. I don't know how to comment on the ending. It's just so depressing, and a lot of times it happens with anyone that gets a day usually, and it's one of those like it's just one of those situations where it's hard to have non-mixed feelings about it, because you're like, I'm horrified, I'm angry, I'm not surprised. Since we're reading it like from the future into the past tense, it's like it's just one of those things that's just you think about and you're just like, that sure was history. Like that's something that like was influential and was important, but at the same time it's like no one knows. And that's one of the things that I find fascinating, because it's like real life lost media. I'm just like, guys. guys.
I also love the fact that like how much of like a theater guy that he was. Like,
yeah, definitely.
You don't hear a lot of politicians that are like doing productions of Hair and just.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because like sometimes you get some that have worked in like the movie industry, but not like theater.
Yeah, and theater is a very particular breed.
Yeah.
As I could tell, costume designer.
Yeah. You would know.
Yeah, we're a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah. You could say that for like a lot of artistic individuals. Yeah, I was like pursuits? No, not necessarily. Like, yeah, but definitely an interesting historical figure, and someone who isn't like outside of like, of course, his area where he's like still very much appreciated. Not as much a like icon as I would have imagined based off what he did.
But it depends on where you are, because if you're like a kid in San Francisco, you more than likely learn about him.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of he's a folk hero. It's
basically. I was gonna make a joke about Florida Man, and I don't know where I was going.
Oh man, that's the wrong coast.
Yeah, but it's just like it only happens here.
Okay, yeah. So what happens in Florida does not stay in Florida ever. It comes back to everyone. But it's definitely just like looking at this guy. It's like I now want to go like watch that movie about him and learn more about like the smaller things that are harder to understand. Like I'm sure, like, you know, movie man director would put it in a way so that I can understand exactly what all the laws he did actually did. Because the ones that are like, oh yeah, we're gonna make it so there's not discrimination in housing, I'm like, great, I understand that. But then other things, I'm like, I don't understand what
he changed how the voting districts work.
Yeah, it's like, did he change the lines of the district? Did he? Because I think from what I was listening, I more interpreted that California was thinking of not using districts, and I'm like, and then he convinced them to use districts. It's like, it's one of those things. It's like I could do some supplementary reading on this. Like, this is something that's like definitely, especially if you're like a history buff.
Yeah, there is a lot of like aspects that I like more breezed over or like didn't really go very heavily into.
Yeah. You don't have time.
Yeah, this is more like an overview of his whole life. But yeah, there's like little aspects of this you can look more into. Like I dove really heavily into like the Dan White stuff, but you could dive even deeper into that.
You can take any angle and just go real deep on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was overall, I liked your presentation and enjoyed hearing about it and giving my thoughts as we went. Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe and share with your friends.
I didn't know we were on YouTube.
Bye.